6%? 7%? That's a lot of money. I might as well just do it myself. Well, that might be true, if a lot of that money you're paying a real estate broker is going toward outdated methods, unnecessary fancy offices, and overpaying executives for a lifetime of service. But you don't need to go that route. Silver Compass Realty is a full-service real estate brokerage serving all of South Central Wisconsin, and the commission is negotiable. Silver Compass will explain exactly what they're going to do to help you buy or sell a home, how that will help you reach your goals, and stand right beside you every step of the way. They want to be your broker, your expert, even when you're not in the middle of a transaction. Silver Compass Realty, helping you find your way home. Contact them today at silvercompassrealty.com or call 608-361-8608. Silver Compass Realty, helping you find your way home.
Burger House 41 is open at 1860 West Mason in Green Bay. You're invited to indulge in one of life's simplest pleasures, a great burger. We're grilling up 15 fresh signature burgers and have over 30 craft beers for the perfect pairing. Experience Wisconsin's best flavors, including white cheddar cheese curds, a variety of specialty sandwiches, milkshakes, and gourmet frozen custard. Burger House 41 at 1860 West Mason is open at 11 a.m. daily. Taste Wisconsin. Taste amazing.
Would you like to experience being one of the free people who produce their own meat and eggs? PurelyPoultry.com has both the chickens and supplies you need to raise your own poultry.
Would you like pets who produce eggs you can barter with? Your own source of clean meat?
A swan on your pond to make your home strikingly beautiful?
How about some pheasants and quail roaming in your woods for enjoyment? If so, check out PurelyPoultry.com.
And we're back. You're listening to The Free People Show at freepeopleshow.com, episode 23, where we're talking all things cryptocurrency with co-host Patrick Baird and our esteemed guest, Pete Augelli. So one of the things that has brought Bitcoin into the news lately is its price. It has rapidly escalated up to, I think, as high as maybe $2,700 a Bitcoin. It's coming down a little bit now. I'm not really sure. I haven't tracked it that close, but it's gone way, way up. As has Ethereum, which has even increased in price, at least in dollars terms, even more than Bitcoin since the beginning of the year. And people that follow these markets say that both of those prices are going to come down a little bit in the next few months. But tell us why that shouldn't make us nervous, Pete.
Yeah, so I think we really have to understand what a currency is and where its value comes from. So a lot of people kind of misunderstand money. Money is nothing more than a normal method of exchange. So anything can be money. Us in this room, we could decide that the receipts in our wallets will become a tradable commodity for, Phil could have a fridge of beer and we'd have to trade our...
I should have a fridge of beer.
You should. This is a shame.
I suggested this.
It's first on my list.
Yeah, for your next week's guest will be Edward 40 Hands.
Yeah, there you go.
But as really what makes a currency, generally speaking, is first it has to be accepted. So we all have to agree that we'll accept this as legal tenure. That's why it's usually something that already has value. So, for example, gold, silver, in very ancient times, things like sheep were usually chosen as money because they also had their own intrinsic value. That's where cryptocurrencies generally are different. They don't have an intrinsic value. But as long as everybody agrees that they can exchange it, then that is really the key, and that's why the prices are going up. We've seen, again, as I mentioned, through political turmoil, we've seen the user base of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies skyrocket.
Because there's an increasing demand for non-governmental currency.
There's an increasing demand for a finite number of Bitcoins, correct? So there's a finite number of Bitcoins.
Right.
So obviously, if more
demand
people,
goes up, supply remains
right.
static.
Basic economics tells you that the price is going to go up.
So just like gold, unlike fiat currencies, which the government doesn't want us to know about, we can't just produce as many Bitcoins as we want. There's a definitive process to getting Bitcoins. There's only so many Bitcoins that you'll get per, run through of this process.
And there's not a political process that determines that. It's already determined in its very nature.
Correct. And as we mentioned before, there's actually a cap to that in 2140 is when we'll reach the maximum number of Bitcoins.
So all the mining will stop then.
Correct.
So we should be mining like crazy now if we want to use Bitcoin.
Yeah,
Every machine we have should be mining Bitcoin.
The thought really being that if you look at where most world governments are going, and I think that we're looking at currency collapses probably throughout the next probably centuries, probably too long. But
so if that were to happen, like let's say Venezuela became worldwide, where you had major economic collapse worldwide, would that accelerate the process of adopting something like Bitcoin?
I think it's already been proven that that is the case. That's what's going to happen.
Oh, sure.
An enormous transformative moment.
And the question comes down to, why would you trust what your wealth, or however you define your currency, to a government that's not stable? And the more destabilized governments become, the more destabilized currencies become, the more people ask that question, and the more opportunity there is for...
Or a government that has no compunction about printing money.
Well, our government doesn't have compunction about printing money, and people. I don't know how. I don't know how much demand has increased in the United States. That might be a question. Maybe Pete knows that. But of the increased demand, you talked about Venezuela.
Yeah.
There's other parts of the world that aren't stable. Has there been more of a demand in America because of people being nervous about
I haven't
quantitative easing, which is basically just stealing money?
I haven't seen those numbers. I'm would go out on a guess, at least percentage wise, you're going to see more of a gain or more of a desire in those destabilized countries. But again, I don't know the numbers.
But if somewhere like India became destabilized, or China more destabilized,
a large country,
and all of a sudden
Venezuela's not a small country, but it's
somewhere big. That would be the tipping point, maybe, for all of a sudden there's a rush to Bitcoin. Now that drives prices up, but of course it's infinitely divisible. So maybe what happens is, now I remember, maybe you remember, Patrick, in the 1980s. The peso got so devalued that they basically just lopped a zero off the end of it, or added a zero, whatever it was, and they made 10 pesos is now just 1 peso. Right. They just did a correction with a decimal point, and so it made it easier for everybody else. But that's the sort of thing that could happen with Bitcoin too, right?
Well, so again, there's a definitive quantity, and so Bitcoin will really what you're looking at is Bitcoin's value is pure demand.
Yes.
There's some talk of whether it's an inflationary bubble. That doesn't really seem to make sense because people aren't speculating on Bitcoin. You buy Bitcoin, you trade it. People might speculate a bit, thinking that the price is going to go up or down, but it's not going to be speculative in the same way that you can hedge against it. There is some shorting that can go on with Bitcoin.
What about between cryptocurrencies? So what if somebody's trying to play like Bitcoin up, and then Ethereum comes into the picture, or there might be other ones that they're trying to play it the same way that people play currencies, world currencies. Right? Yeah.
So what you're really looking at is it's going to be more similar to. I personally think it's going to look more similar to a commodities market, because again with currencies you're doing a couple of things. You are trading based on your perceived demand of them. But the perceived.
Well, I think that's what's going on right now to some degree. Is that once the price began to shoot up, there's a lot of people that probably jumped in purely for speculative reasons.
Oh yeah. I mean, it works the same way as any people buy and sell currencies, commodities. It's very similar. And the difference is with currencies too, which you're looking at currently, because they're all pegged on specific government backing. How stable is that given government? A great example is actually back in the Civil War when the Confederacy actually issued its own currencies. When the Confederacy was looking to lose, there's actually a great book I read, Across 5 Aprils, most boring first chapter of any book you'll ever read, just about planting potatoes. The rest of the book is actually very interesting. You can make it through the first chapter. But one of the comments by the character, they were going to go to the store and buy butter, and the guy, I think the guy said something about oh, you should just bring the wheelbarrow and forget the money. So there's that speculation now on rather the government stability than the value of the currency. The unique thing about cryptocurrencies is they're not based on any. We'll get to that in a second. Most of them aren't based on any government currency or any other commodity. Their value is held specifically within that system. So as long as people trust the system, then that's really the key, is how many people want to accept that particular currency and how many people trust that system. That's
so. If I'm understanding you right, you're saying that this is not a bubble. that Bitcoin's going through an inflationary period where it's going to come back down necessarily, but more the natural sort of maturation of a currency, and that more and more people adopt it, so it's seemingly a little bit more volatile during that process. But once either or any of those are more widely adopted, then they naturally stabilize.
To me, the exact parallel, I think, if I understand this correctly, is gold. There's a finite supply of gold in the world. I mean, there's people who are out there digging up more gold every day, but that has gone to a trickle now. That's not what it was 100, 200 years ago. So if suddenly everybody became convinced that gold was where to put your money, people would start buying gold, and the price of gold would go up, and it would continue to go up. And as the supply and the existing, availability of it shrunk, it would continue on a rise. And so to me, that's what is happening with Bitcoin. It's the fact the price is shot up is a reflection of the demand.
Well, yeah,
for it.
Even
and that's the demand for a finite product.
And even if you look at the history of how much precious metal was in coins, in American coinage over the years, we know that they use less and less silver, less and less precious metals, and they make more and more zinc or whatever, less and less copper in the penny, et cetera, which is a response to those metals becoming more expensive, but then feeling the need to still issue a commonly sized currency, with one that looks the same and still works in machines or whatever. Bitcoin doesn't have that handicap. Cryptocurrencies don't have the handicap. You can trade. It
don't have to dilute the product,
right?
In order to ensure its value. In
order to still be tradable,
right.
It can be traded because it's traded electronically. You can trade very small amounts, and as opposed to having like 1/100th of an ounce of gold in a quarter, you can just trade 1/100th of a Bitcoin electronically, and you don't need to produce the rest of the chaff, the waste in a quarter.
Right. Yeah. So in that sense, it works exactly like gold, silver. That's another key component to any currency. It really needs to be divisible, which all cryptocurrencies are.
So, and we know the history of gold in these United States is a troubled one, and I don't think everyone's aware of this. And we're not going to have time to unfold this completely before the break, but give us an intro to what we want to, an event that people really don't know about.
And I just learned about this very recently, and I was quite shocked and surprised by it. It's been referred to as the Great Gold Theft of 1933.
And that is not exaggerating.
No, and I think that's a precise description of what happened in this country in 1933. Basically what happened is, and we can go into some more detail of why and how it happened, but basically what happened is in 1933, newly elected Franklin Delano Roosevelt forced all private Americans, businesses and private citizens, to surrender their gold to the federal government. And there was a price set that had been the price for gold for some time, and they were able to redeem the price of that at the price that was set. They were able to redeem their gold coins, their gold bars, whatever it may have been, for that set price. And then as soon as the government had all of the gold in their hands and literally carted it off to Fort Knox, then they immediately began tinkering with the currency, so that the value that you had received in dollars for your gold suddenly became significantly less valuable. So you were basically hoodwinked by the government, forced to give up your gold
at the barrel of a gun.
And then because the currency immediately became devalued.
It's shocking. And I'm sure there's people listening and they hear that argument and they think that that's over the top, and that is literally exactly a precise description of exactly what happened. And we're going to cover more of that after we do our due diligence with our sponsors. Please enjoy our commercials and patronize those businesses. And we'll be back in a few minutes with the Free People Show at freepeopleshow.com and continue our discussion about gold, Bitcoin, and the ways that our government has streamlined things. Free People Show, freepeopleshow.com. 6%? 7%? That's a lot of money. I might as well just do it myself. Well, that might be true, if a lot of that money you're paying a real estate broker is going toward outdated methods, unnecessary fancy offices, and overpaying executives for a lifetime of service.